Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is the LL3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangrove, South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, September 26, 2019. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Oh, absolutely. So, just kicking back at Downtowner Saloon, located at 10 Southeast New River Drive East, or South New River Drive East, excuse me, in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, along the New River, right by the Andrews Avenue Bridge, which is under construction near the jail, Broward Jail to be exact. Yeah, I really not going to be doing any ranting today. It's been a little bit quiet. Went online and decided to check something out here I found on Twitter. And this one came from the Electronic Intifada.net, which is technically the pro-Palestinian liberating site. But it's interesting information on here. And this one's entitled, "Do Israeli Report," sorry about that, "Lies About Anti-Semitism." There's a thing here called "Behind the Mask, the Anti-Semitic Nature of BDS Exposed." Now as it reads here, who wrote this? I'll see if I got it. One moment, friends. I just printed everything out. It is by Ali Abumas. So, we'll check that out. Here's what he had to say. A new report by Israel's Ministry of Strategic Affairs attempts to smear the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement as anti-Semitic. I'm sorry, I just laugh, like they all use this stagnant whitewash, calling people racist and anti-Semitic is totally being dumbed down to the core. That's why I had to get a laugh. Israel always wants to claim that all its crimes and achievements are Jewish crimes and achievements, and that therefore anyone who condemns Israel's crimes is condemning all Jews. It's called, they want to counter this thing. It's called a collective witch hunt. All right, which is obvious. But principal critics of Israel must and do insist that Israel's crimes are not committed in the name of all Jews. Yet two groups share an interest in erasing the distinction between Israel on one hand and Jews individually and collectively on the other. The first group is anti-Semites who want to seize on Israel's crimes to justify their bigotry against Jews. Such people are not motivated by genuine solidarity with Palestinians. The second group is Israel and its supporters around the world who, by implicating Jews in Israel's crimes, want to use Jews and genuine concern about anti-Semitism as a shield for Israel. By crying wolf, this group harms the struggle against real anti-Jewish bigotry, which all anti-racists must support. In that spirit, Israel published a report on Wednesday claiming to unmask the BDS boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is inherently anti-Semitic. At a press conference in Brussels, Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Gilad Erdan declared that BDS leaders who use anti-Semitic language and images that also proves their principles of boycotting the Jew among the nations, Israel, are anti-Semitic. This is an old theme that Israel is pursuing with renewed vigor. In this article, I will respond only to claims the report makes about me and the Electronic Intifada. I may return it at a later date to the rest of the 94-page document. So hopefully I'll just make sure if I get these copies, I will address it to you folks. Or not, send it to me. Alright, that'd be great. Distortions and lies. It's no surprise that the Israeli government's attack on me in this publication contain gross distortion and outright lies. For instance, the report includes this tweet I published on the 13th of February. As it says here, Israel poisons Palestinians in West Bank by moving undergraded chemical industries to its illegal racist colonies, and its siege and wars have made 95% of Gaza's water unfit to drink. But okay, EU experts are coming to learn from this toxic criminal apartheid regime. He said it this year. Based on the tweet, the report claims Ali Obinama accuses Israel of poisoning Palestinians' water supply, an accusation that dates back to the anti-Semitic blood libel of the Middle Ages, in which Jews were accused of poisoning the wells of Europe and were held responsible for the Black Plague. As anyone who reads the tweet can see, it does not accuse Israel of poisoning the Palestinians' water supply. I state that Israel's siege and wars made 95% of Gaza's water unfit to drink. If anything, that was an underestimate. My source is the United Nations, which states that 95% of Gaza's water comes from a single aquifer. Today, 97% of this water is unfit for human consumption based on World Health Organization standards. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs stated in November 2018. The report notes how the aquifer is depleted and contaminated due to over-extraction. The water and sewage situation in Gaza includes the contamination of the aquifer has been exacerbated over the past decade by a range of other factors that include damage to infrastructure during the recurrent hostilities. OCHA explains, which is Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. It also notes that Gaza's chronic electricity crisis as a result of Israel's siege and Israel's restrictions on the import of spare parts further degrade the functioning and conditions of water and sewage systems. My tweet does say that Israel poisons Palestinians in the West Bank by moving unregulated chemical industries to its illegal racist colonies. That is true. In my 2014 book, The Battle for Justice in Palestine, I write about how Israeli companies move from within Israel to industrial zones inside settlements in the occupied West Bank, where they can evade Israeli environmental regulations. Ain't that nice, huh? One example I cite is the Netzizano Shalom Industrial Zone, built on confiscated land near the city of Tulkarem. Factories started moving there from Israel in the 1980s following complaints about pollution in Israeli cities. While in the factories, Kashuri Industries make pesticides and other chemicals, according to its CEO. It moved to the preoccupied West Bank with the encouragement of the government. In 2010, the human rights group Al-Haqi produced this 5-minute video summing up the toxic impact of the Geshuri factory. And I recommend everyone check that out. I will put the title down and we'll get the site from, and you can check it out yourself. In the video, local resident Ahmad O'Day tells Al-Haqi that on days with the easterly wind blows pollution towards nearby Israeli settlements, the Geshuri factory shuts down. He says it only operates with northerly and westerly winds blow the pollution towards Palestinians. According to Al-Haqi, toxic sludge from Netanyahu Shalom has been dumped onto Palestinian land with while emissions from pesticide manufacturing have increased the presence of noxious gases. The group states that known health effects of these poisons include skin disorders, liver problems, reproductive and infertility problems, immune system damage, endocrine disruption, asthma and respiratory illnesses, hypertension, and other cardiovascular problems, and cancers. There are just examples of the environmental racism and toxic pollution inherited in Israeli military occupation and exploitation of Palestinian land. Yet Israel's government wants people to dismiss this evidence of its crime as acted to a medieval blood libel. Interesting there. So it's like, let's play a little game of exceptionalism. If you criticize any one of those organizations for being tyrannical and disrespecting the environment, you'd be called anti-Semitic, right? Come on. This is an old, pathetic, recycled feces platform. I'll continue on here. Condemning neo-Nazis is anti-Semitism. The report mentions me on two other occasions. One where it takes exception to a 2017 article I published, headline, quote, Germany's new Nazi sees Israel as role model, unquote. According to the report, this article is an example of falsely presenting Israel as a Nazi state. The report does not challenge any single fact in my article, which notes how leaders in Germany's neo-Nazi party, Alternative for Germany, admire Israel, warm feelings that some Israeli figures are happy to reciprocate. I view these German neo-Nazis as apparent, but apparently criticizing their alliance with Israeli politicians makes one an anti-Semite in the eyes of his government. On the third occasion, the report mentions me. It takes exception to how I have compared the Israeli soldiers to ghetto guards, occupiers, snipers, and other murderers of Palestinian children, unquote. So it's an interesting claim on that as well. I will continue on. Who can seriously deny that Israeli soldiers are occupiers who snipe at children, and what even Israeli commentators horrified by Israel's actions have called a ghetto? That's a question. I can only speculate that this attempt to smear me and the Electronic Intifada is meant as as retribution for how last year we published Al Jazeera's leaked undercover documentary, The Lobby. That film, which the Israel lobby tried to suppress, exposes how Erdogan's Ministry of Strategic Affairs is engaged in a covert campaign to spy on and sabotage a lawful civil society activities supporters of Palestinian rights in the United States. The Israeli government may spend enormous resources trawling through social media, and it might find some expressions of anti-Semitism among activists, rather stemming from bigotry or ignorance. But these do not represent or characterize the movement. Leaders in Palestine solidarity movement have always been the first to condemn any expression of racism, including anti-Semitism. Remember, there's a lot of people who are Palestinians are Jewish as well, and by faith. So you have to look at that as well, friends, okay? They have emphasized that there is no place to blame Jews collectively or Israel's criminal acts against Palestinians, and that, despite its insistence, Israel does not represent all Jews. Israel has no defense for its crimes, so that is left is to try to smear an entire movement for freedom, justice, and equality. Very interesting indeed. And to be very frank, I was I always questioned these things for a long time on how the government over there treats the Palestinian people and vice versa. Because you got tyrants even who are Palestinians they assume they represent everyone on their behalf is irrelevant too. When it comes to violating people's rights, murdering innocent people, abusing them, it's unacceptable. Tyranny needs to be condemned, period. All forms, regardless what side of the coin you're on. Many people in Israel who are Jewish are infuriated with what the government's doing. Military, IDF, and all that, what they're doing. You don't hear about that. Yeah, it's a lot of big feud going on, political feud. And it has to stop because innocent people are getting hurt or killed. Non-combatants. Doesn't matter if you're Israeli Jews, Palestinians, etc. Innocent people get hurt from these horrific practices. Even a person like myself, I can be critical of the government, any government, including Israel's. Doesn't make me anti-Semitic. I don't hate Jews. Period. Okay, just to let you folks know. When I call people ginos, Jew name only, yeah, they're frauds, they're posers, they're pathetic. I go by their actions, nothing else. And everyone else should do the same. It's time to that place in the Middle East to spiritually prosper. During that one time, they had during the time of the West Bank, if I'm correct. I think it was the West Bank. When Sharon or the Israeli government was telling people to get people evicted, the Israeli settlers to evict them off the property. And many of the Palestinians were worried because they were starting to create relationships with each other. Yeah, a lot of folks had businesses, Israelis had businesses, gave them great jobs, great pay, invite their families to dinner. Things were happening, but governments don't like that. Both sides. The mainstream government don't want to know this. I learned this from WorldNet Daily. Observe responsibly, of course. The bottom line is this. The people got to keep the pressure going. Doesn't matter what side. If you're tired of the propaganda matrix, tell the government, you should let them send a message. And it's happening. And even my person like myself was born here, Brooklyn, New York to be exact, American citizen. I like to end foreign aid, not just to Israel, but for every country. It's unacceptable. Why should I be bribed? That's an example of redistribution of wealth, to be honest. I mean, all these people, they hate socialism, but they support foreign aid to Israel. Double speak, indeed. So, keep it up, my friend. Keep the pressure going. If you piss them off, then it has to be good, and I do commend it. And everyone there who are Jewish and Israeli don't like what's going on with their government, you call them out as well. All right, my friends, we'll do one more here. I know this will be pretty brief. This was interesting. Came from the American Free Press. And this was here about Bibi's warmongering. Came out the 25th, but probably was in the articles a while back. The Richard Walker. As it reads here, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recent offer help to Israel put out massive fires in the Amazon came as he was starting his own bonfires in the Middle East, where he has a history of promoting political arson. While the outreach to Brazil was designed to promote Israel as a nation interested in the environment and to capitalize on Netanyahu's close ties to the government there, Netanyahu was busy stoking fires of a different type in Syria and Lebanon. He threatened each country that it retaliated against Israeli bombing and the deployment of swarms of drones armed with explosives against targets in their nation. They would face the full might of Israel's military. Somewhat ironically, after attacking Lebanon, he told the Lebanese to calm down. It was straight out of Netanyahu's devious playbook. He has been busy for years attacking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon and Iranian facilities in Syria, with the aim of goading Hezbollah and Iran into military response. Such response, he is convinced, would then permit him to falsely claim Israel was under attack and that it had the right to retaliate as a matter of self-defense. His long-term aim has been war with Iran and Hezbollah, with the hope that it will draw the U.S. in the past year, he has begun to feel more emboldened with the support from U.S. neocons like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, CIA's own, to be exact. Recent Israeli attacks in Beirut led Lebanese President Michael Aoun, a Maronite Christian, to declare that Netanyahu's use of armed drones to target Lebanon was an act of war. Netanyahu got the response from Hezbollah that he wanted when its leader, Hassan Nasrallah, threatened that Hezbollah would retaliate for the killing of several of his men in a drone strike. Nasrallah wanted Israeli troops on the border with Lebanon that they should be on alert. Netanyahu predictably responded that any threats and actions from Lebanon would meet with a massive military reply. It was classic Netanyahu. Nevertheless, this was not a typical Netanyahu strategy. He has grander motive for attacking Lebanon and Syria that was not apparent in coverage of the developing crisis in the international media, and especially in U.S. mainstream media outlets, which reported the story, as they always have done, that Israel was merely targeting its enemies, in particular Iranian proxies who pose a threat, even if no threat is apparent or imminent. To understand the bigger picture, one often has to turn to foreign diplomatic and intelligible sources to get the inside track on what is really going on. This writer learned from talking to longtime sources that Netanyahu and his advisors have panicked ever since President Trump began talking about the prospect of getting a deal with Iran. They fear the televised scenes that would accompany a possible face-to-face meeting with him and Iran's President Rouhani. In an effort to stop this from ever happening, Netanyahu has decided to ramp up tensions in the Middle East with the aim of engaging Iran. So far, Iran has not taken the bait, but who knows what Netanyahu may do should a summit between Trump and Rouhani become a reality. Israel increasingly aware that some of the G7 leaders, especially French President Macron, recently pressed President Trump to employ the same energy he has used with North Korea. In other words, engage Rouhani on a personal level. There is, however, a backstory to all of this that has not made news. It's the role being played by the Saudis, who have been working secretly with Israel to prevent any U.S. political rapprochement with Iran. This writer learned about the Saudi element of this crisis by reaching out a longtime European intelligence source who wished to remain anonymous. The source spelled out the Saudi role and how it dovetailed with Israel's policy. According to the source, Saudis and Israelis have a joint military intelligence project underway to persuade Trump that Iran is the biggest threat to Middle East peace. Secret meetings have been held in Tel Aviv and Riyadh to plan joint operations against Iran as well as against Iran's allies in Syria and Lebanon. Netanyahu and the Saudi leader Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, have effectively forged a pact. This development worries the leaders of Russia, China, and some European nations, since MBS is considered by European intelligence chiefs to be a dangerous wild card in the region and someone Netanyahu will not be able to control. This sounds like he may be the next Antichrist, according to Nostradamus. Something to think about. Well, we'll just wait and see, right? This is not a positive development when it appears President Trump could deliver a deal with Iran that would claim the region and bring the Iranians into the Western fold. The source added, the prospect of it happening terrifies Netanyahu and MBS, though I suspect Israeli people would be relieved to have Iran as an ally, not an enemy. You have to understand that with Netanyahu, everything is about his ego. With MBS, it's about his hatred of Shia Islam. Because if you really look at that, friends, I remember I did talk about, the other thing I talk about, if you look up Shiites in Saudi Arabia, they get treated like garbage as well. Something to look at, my friends. Please, do your homework. I know many of you have who listen to my show, which I deeply appreciate. For the first time in several years, there's a real possibility that there could be an historic meeting between Trump and his Iranian counterpart. It would be applauded by world leaders, and it might signal a new era in U.S. Middle East politics. But with unseen forces opposed to peace, there's always a likelihood of war. To be very frank, I would like to see this happen, folks. And whether you like Trump or not, it doesn't matter. Let him fulfill his obligations as an elected ambassador, handle foreign policies more honorably. He may be a jerk-off or an asshole, excuse my language, a pain, or a jerk, don't matter. Well, he's not a complete moron, what the mainstream garbage media want you to assume, want you to think. It's bigger than that. I know he studied history as well. Remember, he's only a pawn of the game. I don't know what Sheldon Adelson has to say about it. That's his main campaign financer. Something to really think about there. But I would like to see this. Has to stop. The bottom line is this, friends. If you just look up 1953 CIA coup in Iran, National Security Archives would be a great site to go to. Or look up Operation Ajax. A lot of information had to be declassified. And it's how the American hostage crisis came about and all that later on. I think the Iranian people would love that. I'm not crazy about the Iranian government, but there's a lot of beautiful people in that country. Many of them have blonde hair, blue eyes as well. Remember, Iran in Persian means land of the Aryans, noblemen. I say, make it happen. If it ticks off Netanyahu to MBS, who the hell cares? So that's how I look at it. And always be aware of foreign influences. John Jay wrote that in his Federalist Papers 2-5 and George Washington's Federal Address on May 19th, 1796. Look it up. Observe responsibly. Make your own judgment. And you know what? That is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media network. If you have any questions, comments, or if you said something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. And that is it. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.